Our PowerPoint is on illicit drug use and bipolar disorder. We decided that these went together because a lot of the times people with bipolar disorder do have a high rate of drug use, and on the other hand, people with drug use can develop bipolar disorder from the drug use. For the media, for cultural environment, the media portrays the individuals with drug use and bipolar negatively. You see this on many TV shows, many movies. The main example that we found is crime TV shows that exhibit bad behaviors by the individuals that are affected by drug use and bipolar disorder. We found a quote from Fawcett. The worst stereotypes come out in such depictions: mentally ill individuals as incompetent, dangerous, slovenly, undeserving. The portrayals serve to distance them from the rest of us. Family support is a huge one in both of these disorders. Illicit drug users tend to be supported by the family until the family feels like they can't anymore. This is a personal interview from my aunt who lost her son and my cousin to a heroin overdose a year ago this month. Um, she has been through a lot with his drug use, and it's been an ongoing thing for years until he did finally lose his battle. Um, she ended up having to basically not help him anymore because she physically couldn't. It was too much for her. And on the other hand, bipolar disorder is not only difficult for the individual suffering with the disorder, but also has strain on the family due to the many needs the individual requires. This can include medication regimens, budgeting. This was a personal interview from someone Caitlin Nichols interviewed. Her future father-in-law suffers from bipolar disorder, and so this was from his family. Friendships, the role of peers. Friendships have a powerful effect on the individual suffering. These friends can enable the behavior of addiction and cause the individual to progress further into drug use. Again, coming from my aunt, um, basically what she had said is that friends are such a powerful thing. When an individual is suffering from drug use, they can either make or break that individual, and if they decide to get treatment, if they continue to be sober, or if they relapse. Bipolar disordered individuals tend to lack long-time friendships due to the perception of the world. They believe that people are out to get them and that they don't have their best interest in mind, so this makes it hard for them to have long-lasting friendships. Cyclical nature. Bipolar has been genetically linked to families. The risk increases if the individual affected has an immediate family member. 60 to 80% of the primary cause of bipolar is linked genetically. So if you were to have a father that has bipolar disorder, you have an increased risk of getting that mental illness yourself. Illicit drug use and addiction also has a strong genetic component along with lifestyle factors. It is an addiction, and so addictions are hereditary. Lifestyle factors also including, like I said before, peers and different relationships that these individuals may have. The legal and political system and how it affects these disorders, illicit drug use and addiction. It's been a huge topic in the legal system lately. They found that incarcerated individuals have a really high chance of relapsing because there are not programs in jails to help the individuals with getting the help that they need. And so they have tried to put programs in jails so they can have an effort to reduce relapse rates, and it saves them time and money because these individuals are less likely to be incarcerated again. Individuals with bipolar disorder have the same rights to their health as do everyday people. NAMI, or the National Alliance of Medical Illness, believes that if community-based systems are available, there will be a decreased need for court-ordered treatment. This would be like support groups, things like that, that they can help individuals manage their medication, all of those things, instead of the court ordering them to go to certain places and get treatment. The potential barriers: bipolar disorder often makes individuals fear the affected individual. This means that if we hear that a patient has bipolar disorder, we automatically have that stigma in our brain that this individual can be dangerous. And while that can be true, it's not true for every individual with bipolar disorder. The stigma with illicit drug use can include social rejection, labeling, stereotyping, discrimination, even if the individual is not acting negatively. So we automatically discriminate individuals that use drugs, even if their actions have not affected anyone. If they use them in their homes and they're safe and they're not causing any like havoc, we still associate a negative stigma with those individuals. The international scope: illicit drug use is a very broad and common, as well as bipolar disorder. There are no specific regions that puts these populations at risk more than others. We did thoroughly research this and found that in one city, it's not different than in another city with both of these disorders. The socioeconomic status is very broad for these disorders. Another personal communication with my aunt, it does not discriminate by socioeconomic status. We've seen this, you can see this by just looking in your neighborhood, perhaps, that even with extremely wealthy individuals, they can suffer from addiction, and a lot of the times there are kids in extremely wealthy families that do end up suffering from addiction from the pressure that parents can put on them. And on the other end of the spectrum, we see it high in poverty because a lot of these individuals are very stressed and they turn to drugs to kind of cope with their situation. Bipolar individuals are more likely to be of a lower socioeconomic status. They tend to have lower incomes, be single, and disabled. The single part is because of the relationship aspect of this disease, is they don't feel like they can trust people. The lower income is because they are not able to fully function sometimes with jobs. Same with the relationship part of that, is that they have a hard time trusting people, and so they do not stay in one place for a long time. Race and ethnicity: individuals that are American and Caucasian have the highest rate of drug abuse at 38.2%. This can be surprising to some people because the other stigma around illicit drug use is that people of other races have a higher drug use, but it is so common in the United States, and it's such a big, I want to say it's almost an epidemic, that it's huge. It does not discriminate by race, and it's definitely, white people have been a big target for drug use and for selling drugs too. According to a study by Kilborn, men present with bipolar disorder more than women. Caucasians present with bipolar disorder more frequently. So a male that is Caucasian has a chance to have bipolar disorder more than women that are Caucasian or of any other race. Religion. Research shows that faith can help support individuals with mental illness, but also causing the symptom of religiosity. So it's a very delicate, almost like teeter-tottering kind of issue, that it can either support the individual or it can cause like intense religious symptoms that can often be shown when they're having manic episodes. And research shows that religion does not have an effect on illicit drug use. This was pretty surprising to me because I know religion is very supportive, but I did not think that it would ever really affect individuals that have drug use. So I was very surprised to see that. Gender: males are more likely to be affected than females. This is true for drug use and bipolar disorder. For some reason, males have a higher risk of having bipolar disorder, and they also have a higher risk of using illicit drugs. The illicit drug use um, can be put towards that males have more risky behavior than females, and so they have a higher chance of trying drugs and therefore being addicted to drugs after a while. The geographical location for illicit drug use, there is a 9.6% in large metropolitan areas, a 9.8% in small metropolitan areas, and a 7.8% in non-metropolitan areas. The US has the highest prevalence of reported bipolar disorder, 4.4%, while India has the lowest prevalence at 0.1%. Bias, illicit drug use. For implicit bias, we feel like we always think they're very helpless, they're very lazy. Explicit, they're often called opioid addicts, substance users, etc. Bipolar disorder, implicit is that they're bad or they're helpless, and explicit is that they're not blameworthy. Like, we try to be very sensitive about mental illness, but there's so much stigma surrounding it, and so it's very hard for individuals to have that mindset that this is not their fault. International scope. There's no evidence that drug use and bipolar disorder would be influenced different for health. We looked high and low, and there's really no good supporting research that we found for this. Here's all our references. Thank you for listening to this. I hope you learned something about illicit drug use and addiction and bipolar disorder and the various links that they have with each other.